I have a poster autographed by Michael Bolton and Kenny G.
What?
Because she won tickets to the concert at the Puyallup Fair. I got a meet and greet with both Kenny G and Michael Bolton. I got a fucking autograph.
Wow.
The read to his. Yeah,
This
that's
is amazing.
That exists.
Recorded live from Studio 12A in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. You're listening to the Josh and Friends Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Josh and Friends Podcast. I am your host. My name is Josh. And this week, we are here to discuss the 90s. The year is 1993. And the biggest movies of the year are Jurassic Park, Mrs. Doubtfire, and The Fugitive. Michael Jordan and the Bulls win their third straight championship. And for the first time ever, the World Wide Web is now available to the general public. But we're here to discuss the year in rock. And joining me in today's conversation are two of my good buddies who were both schoolmates of mine, entering our senior year of high school. And we're going to rank our top 5 selections from this year. So let's get right into this and help me welcome to the show Mr. Lee Olson and Ethan McDonald. Woo! There we go. We got the gang back in town. Well, not back in town, but, back together.
I wish.
How you guys doing?
Josh, I am fantastic.
You guys ready for this?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Middle age, it's getting weird.
It is getting weird, little weird. It's been what, 30 years since we listen to these songs on a regular basis?
Dude,
Some of them are still.
I thought about this. 1993 to now is the same as if our parents were looking at this 1993 to 1963.
1963. The Beatles have not even come to America yet.
That's how old we are. Just so you know, our parents didn't have podcasts. They had records and shit. I'm just saying.
I'm sure they're listening to FDR on the radio.
Exactly. A simpler time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, yeah, put that in perspective. Yeah. Wow, that's
wild.
crazy.
Yeah, this is us reviewing this shit right now is the same as our parents reviewing 1963 in 1993.
I mean,
That's insane.
I'm trying to think of the classic albums in 1963. We got, ladies and gentlemen, we have Peter, Paul, and Mary. We have no.
Yeah.
Wow.
And by the way, what would we have said to our parents if they had been doing this podcast right then? Wow,
I don't know.
Fucking old.
Yeah, exactly. Man, wow, you guys are old, man.
Yeah.
And here we are.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah.
We made it.
Will you?
We made it to middle age.
Oh well, there you go. Yeah.
I had money down that 2 of the 3 of us wouldn't be here. So, and luckily I lost that bet.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah.
Well, this is why we're here, to celebrate 1993 for all those who didn't make it and those of us who are here.
But let's make it clear that we were all 17 going into. But Lee's old but let's just Lee's older than us. I feel like.
But I was still
Ish.
17, depending on what month we're talking about.
Yeah, talk about what month we're going, out of our junior year to the start of our senior year, our last football. I mean, just so many amazing memories around that time. So the heart of high school and just teenage hijinks. I mean, doesn't get better.
No.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, it
gets a lot better. It got a lot better.
It gets a lot better.
It gets a lot better, kids.
But okay, high school, sure.
I think it was a little bit better for Ethan than maybe Lee and myself, but I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, like Ethan. I mean, look, I didn't learn to talk to girls until I don't know my 6th year of college.
Out of the 10 that you completed, Lee, and you still don't have a degree. What was that? I'm just sorry.
It's only 7, Dick.
Lee, that's why this is probably that's why this means that you probably have a bigger connection to these songs, right?
Yeah, because I was at home listening to music, masturbating.
You said
so. Anyway, let's get to the list.
All right. Okay.
Let's get to the list.
We are here to look at.
Lee, depressed.
Ethan's like, let's go back to the best time in my life. I'm like,
no, it's not the best. It's not. College by far and away is that time, Lee. Come on, man.
Yes.
Okay.
We will eventually get to.
Yeah.
So, guys, we are here to discuss the year 1993, and we're gonna keep it to rock because
Agreed.
there's a lot of other genres that we could cover, but this is kind of like more our forte, and what we were mainly listening to back in the day. So, yeah,
True.
all right, so I think that we're gonna, what I did is I created a kind of like a playlist with, gosh, just like way over 200 songs on it. It just got crazy. It got out of hand, but you could, if you want to follow along
with music getting out of hand.
If you want to follow along, you can go and scan through the list of songs. You can listen to whatever you'd like, and I'll put it up there if you guys want to click onto it and follow along with it. But basically, it has clips of different rock songs that came out that year. Very, very broad rock songs. Like, we have like soft rock to
rock
metal to grunge. Yeah. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to count down our top 5 favorite albums from this year, the year of 1993, 30 years ago. I know, it seems like it was yesterday. Crazy. I know, it seems like it was yesterday.
Yeah, it sort of does.
So let's just get right into this. You guys want to get into it? Anybody have any thoughts? Anybody have any final thoughts before we get into this list here?
Well, and I'm sure you saw that suggestion, Lee, that I kind of texted beforehand, but I think like we all have some albums that are probably honorable mentions, but we're going to save those to right before we get to our final choice, because clearly it's so hard to pick just 5, but that's the rules of the game. So we'll mention our honorable mentions later. And we're also, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, because we're saying with Jonas, we're okay to use soundtracks, even if they're rock focused for the most part, right?
Sure. Hey, anything's game, man. Anything's game. So if Lee wants to pick out the Conehead soundtrack with his favorite band, the Chili Peppers, on it,
you just nailed my number 1. God damn it.
Slow to squeeze. It's like he thought it was a song about his jerking off. So
just check me off the list. You just picked number 1.
Oh, all right. Well, sorry.
No, but also, I think it's worth mentioning. Looking back is different than being in it. So we're not. I think we're not going to cover what our choices would have been in '93.
Oh, definitely,
because they would have been different. So I'll put that out there.
Mine aren't very different, which I guess means I haven't grown much as a human.
Well, it is.
Or you had great taste then.
Well,
I don't know if that's the case.
Part of that reasoning, Lee, is I didn't hear all these albums back when they came out. So like I'd heard about half of them.
True.
Well, maybe more than half, but like. There's some on there that might be surprising because I legit did not even hear some of these albums when they came out. But yeah, so who wants to start?
93. Yeah, go ahead. Eth.
Oh, no. What say? Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I mean, high school, junior year in high school is a silo of, especially the kids today don't understand. They have internet. They have access to all of it.
Yeah.
Right.
We had 3 radio channels.
Yeah, we had to scrape together pennies to go buy CDs or tapes, depending on what era we're talking about. And
right,
I mean, it's
so
just like
yeah. Anyway,
or you had to have a friend that made mixtapes for you and put like all the levels on the back of all of your CDs. And I mean, I don't know if everyone had a Josh Matlock in their life.
I was going to say who was our friend that did that?
Yeah,
you said you still have some of those CDs, Ethan, where it has the levels on there.
Yeah.
Like
some of the CDs literally had the level stickers on the back,
which I think you took from your dad, right? Because your dad used to do that with the levels.
My dad used to do that, but yeah. So I would do that on all the CDs because two different CD players had different levels, so you have to make different levels for each of the CDs if you're doing a mixtape. So
Lee Matlock, the legend.
Anyway,
the legend.
Eth.
All right.
So Ethan's going to start, right? So Ethan's going to start it off.
I'm going to kick this sucker off, baby.
Do it, man.
Light the candle.
So, like I said, this 5th one might be a shock too, because I definitely would have picked this in 1993, or maybe I would have, because all you had to do was see a video with Alicia Silverstone, if I'm saying, or Alicia, whatever her name is, and Liv Tyler, and just like you go into this and like it started to make me go like, Aerosmith's pretty awesome. And I mean, honestly, later you introduced me to all the amazing back catalog of things that I just wasn't really exposed to, not being a child of the 70s and not really paying attention to them a whole lot in the 80s. I remember like Dude Looks Like a Lady, so songs going, these guys are wild. But this one, like the videos, even though they're a little more soft rock, kind of like the stadium ballad, like I'm sorry, those videos, I'm like, okay, you've got my attention, boys. And then, come on, Joe Perry on guitar. I mean, that guy's just he's legit, man. I just
Dude,
love listening to that guy.
Even the album tracks on that album are pretty damn solid. Like they're pretty good. So
that's a good album.
You guys haven't mentioned what album. It's
Get a Grip. You said it.
Get
I'm
a Grip.
sorry.
Get a
Grip.
by Aerosmith,
1993 has the great utter end of the cover. Great cover too. It's like, damn, like they got like a lot of things. I love it when a lot of things line up and make an album great. So
that's,
I don't know that
one of the songs on there line up.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I think it's awesome too that like those guys came back. 93 would have been way late for them. They had
20 years in the running.
I mean, really, like the Toys in the Attic, like the Aerosmith, like they were past their prime by all standards, except they made that album and it fucking rocked.
Yeah. They had that comeback. Basically, it was the big comeback was Permanent Vacation, and then
was Walk This Way though kind of a big thing to getting back in the mainstream again though, because I remember when the Run DMC crossover.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing is like these guys were 70s, 80s. 90s and beyond. Aerosmith was legit. They're one of the greatest rock bands of all time. Yeah, they deserve to be on this list for sure.
Agreed.
Yep. And that was probably their last really great album, in my opinion. Like they had a couple of 9 Lives and like just.
I like the one with
like,
Pink or whatever.
There's some okay songs, but not all the way through solid. Like, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, they only lasted 30 years making incredible albums.
Right. All right, so there you go. There's your number 5.
And I think if we're being honest here, including Alicia Silverstone in the videos didn't hurt.
Yeah, or Liv.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that caught my attention.
Yeah, especially like because they were like kind of like our age too. You're like, what's going on over here?
Yeah,
17,
man. You are young, dumb, and full of you know what.
All right, Lee.
Wait,
buddy.
At 47, never mind. Okay. 2 of the 3 of those. I'm picking a soundtrack for my first one, Last Action Hero. Aerosmith was on the Last Action Hero soundtrack. It's not the best song by any stretch. This thing starts off with Big Guns by AC/DC. It's got a couple of tracks by Alice in Chains that nobody could hear anywhere else. I mean, it's got Megadeth, it's got Cypress Hill, it's got Tesla, which nobody else likes Tesla.
I saw them in concert. Saw Tesla.
Wow.
I heard Tesla's pretty good. Like live. I heard it's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, Modern Day Cowboy, sweet ass. Sorry, to the point.
Well, no, but that's the thing is like this was kind of a capture of, I think, the transition between sort of butt rock, metal, and sort of new rock a little bit. Alice in Chains, like alternative, a little Seattle, a little Megadeth, a little Aerosmith, a little Cypress Hill, a little Fishbone, Tesla, like
Anthrax.
Thank you. And this thing, I don't know, like Angry Again is a fucking amazing song.
Excellent.
The movie sucked. I mean,
soundtrack is way better than the movie.
Maybe the movie didn't suck if you were. This was kind of a Princess Bride for '93. But if
I remember, I literally remember 0 from that movie. I only remember the soundtrack.
It's kind of a golden ticket, Willy Wonka, Princess Bride thing, except the movie sucks. And for our generation, 17, 18 years old, it was about the music. And this soundtrack was fucking amazing.
Well, it just makes you wonder, like, who curated this thing? Because, like, you know how it usually goes when they ask you to write a song for, like, a soundtrack for an album. Like, we get some pretty B-level crap that, like, maybe a riff they've been working on. Like, they got whoever curated this got these bands to not only contribute incredible songs you could only hear on this, for the longest time, right, on this soundtrack. But, like, this is like some of these bands, like, some of their best or, like, incredibly creative tracks and cool pieces. Just whoever did that or could convince these guys to give up these songs, like if they were holding them for an album, man, more power to them. I mean, because like I said, way better than the movie.
Yeah, usually soundtracks are kind of like old school shit that like they can afford to put in the movie, or new bands that they don't know or whatever. This was a mix of all the best shit and cross genre. It was really good.
Do they still do this for movies where? I mean, now it seems like they take like older tracks that everybody knows. Like, if you look at like the Iron Man, they're like, all right, we'll just put some like classic AC/DC on there.
And,
you know what I mean? But like, but maybe because album sales aren't like what they used to be. Cause like people, like these artists will save like their best songs for themselves instead of like throwing it on a soundtrack, because who's going to buy the soundtrack?
Right.
I think it's also that movie budgets have gone to $1 billion. They can afford to pay for the best music. Whereas back when we were in high school, most movies couldn't afford to pay for good music.
That's an interesting thought.
The fact that this crappy, shitty Schwarzenegger movie could afford to pay for this stuff, I don't know. It was really cool.
Big summer blockbuster, I think, that year, though, wasn't it? It was supposed to be like the big hit of the summer, and then it went beep, 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 beep.
It's not a great movie.
All right.
But what the hell have I, if anyone wants to listen, what the hell have I?
Alice in Chains, amazing.
Awesome. All right, so my number 5 is actually, I'm not a huge, I've mentioned this before, I'm not a huge fan of this band. I used to like them a lot more back in the day, but my number 5 selection is Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. Now, it was too strong of an album to leave off the list, in my opinion, because in my opinion, it's their peak, and they're one of the top bands of the entire 90s. And I don't think they ever got any stronger. What's that?
So that's great. I can't stand them. I mean, they were powerful. I just couldn't stand Billy Corgan.
I mean, I agree. I'm gonna let Josh talk.
Listen.
Sorry.
No,
you're not offending me. You're not offending me. But Cherub Rock, Disarm, Today, Rocket. I even like some of the album tracks, Hummer, Geek USA, and Mayonnaise. But like I said, one of the biggest bands of the decade. I really got annoyed by their next album with that weird video. I don't even know I can't remember what it was, but
Tonight.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, but I thought that the songs on this album were really catchy, really strong, and they had rocking songs on this album. And again, I think it's too strong to leave off the list.
Credit to Butch Vig.
Exactly. Yeah. He produced this album. He produced also it was right after he produced Nevermind.
Well, but here's the thing: would you pick this to be in your 5 album disc collection from '93? I know that you're looking at it and you're saying, "Hey, this is a strong album. It performed well. It has rockin' songs." And I'm not judging you if you do. Would you choose this to be one of the 5 that you listen to?
That's a very good point.
As far as overall song for song, I would have it in my top 5.
Good.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean, there's a lot of these albums where they have 2 or 3 songs that are I fucking love these songs. They're great songs. But I think that for the era, if you're gonna pick an iconic album, which really kind of helped define the era, this is one of those albums where you can't avoid not putting it somewhere in the top. I think a lot of people watching this are like, you guys, well, clearly you guys are not going to even have this anywhere near the top 5. But the fact that I even have it at number 5, some people would say this is easily the top album of 93. No, so I'm just saying that's
what's rad about music is, that's what's rad about music is you're not wrong. It's just not our taste.
Sure. And listen, I think we're gonna have vastly different selections, which, well, especially me from you guys.
Yeah, so, Ethan and I are similar in the end. Similar-ish, except I think we'll diverge more.
Some diversity, yeah.
I think we'll diverge. Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right, number 4, Ethan. What do you have for number 4?
For number 4, I'll be honest, this was not an album when I heard about it coming that I was really excited for, because being a fan of 80s metal, okay, I'm obviously a big metal guy. You guys know that almost every day in 93, I probably wore a heavy metal t-shirt of some sort and shorts or sweats. And that was pretty much my uniform in high school.
Hold on. I'm going to defend you for that, because we had big legs. They did not make jeans for guys like us, brother. Because we tore the fucking seams out of the side of our legs.
We were beefy.
I know you did. I did. So it was either cut off sweats or regular sweats. There was nothing else. Anyway, I'm done defending the pants.
Yeah, Lee, you had those. You had the sweats that were always the cutoff sweats. And
because my legs were too big. My quads were too big. I tore fucking jeans at the side seams. Ethan had bigger legs than me. The reason we wore that was not because we were fucking slaves to fashion. It was because we couldn't wear those pants.
My legs
like a bodybuilder back in the day.
Yeah, my legs were longer. You might have been thicker around at the thigh.
Maybe thicker. I'm just saying. I think we both had the problem.
We had big leg
literally
issues, no question.
Splitting the seams on the side of our legs.
I got my cat figured out, guys. I'm sorry. Hey, yeah. So this band also switched lead singers, and so I didn't know what to expect because Joey Belladonna had been the singer of this band, and though it's not everyone's cup of tea, Anthrax was a band that I loved, like from their singing of Stephen King songs. So when they brought in John Bush to be the lead singer, I'm like, man, I just don't know if this is going to be any good. And then The Sound of White Noise came out and kind of blew all of mine and my metal buddies' kind of minds. Like it was almost like it was a new band, but man, that album sounded good. Like it sounded good. It kicked your ass from the very first song with Potter's Field, Only, Invisible. There's just so many great songs on this thing. And it was a strong album. Like, to be honest, Anthrax was always pretty good about putting together pretty strong albums from start to finish. But this one was just really strong song for song. And it's one that I listen to a ton. I still dust off occasion when I'm throwing around weight in my garage because since COVID, I'm too much of a cheapskate to go back to the gym. And it still gets me going, gets me pumped up, and it's just a great album. So,
Ethan, did I have sports literature with you in our senior year? I can't remember.
I don't know that I don't recall taking sports lit, but I have been hitting the head a lot. It may have been. We had Larry Moss together for a couple of years.
Well, we might not have had that class together because I was walking from that class to the lunchroom, and I ran into you, and that's for some reason you came up to me and you're like, "Man, have you heard that album?" And I go, "No," and you're like, "You got to hear this," and that's when I first heard of that album, and then I listened to it and I was like, "Dude, that first single, Only,
Only is the big single they released. Yeah,
it was amazing. That's a great song. So if anybody has not heard that song, definitely hear that song. But yeah, there were some other strong tracks on it, but I definitely loved that first single that came off that album. And I remember you telling me about that when it came out. What a weird.
That sounds like me. I know. I still insult people with my passion for music. Have you heard the new? Right before we start this, I'm texting you videos to the new Queens of the Stone Age song because, of course, I'm like, nothing's changed. I've just gotten less hair and grayer.
Yeah. So, Lee, what do you have for your number 4, buddy?
Number 4, Versus by Pearl Jam. Pearl Jam 10 was fucking amazing, right? I mean, 91, the whole grunge thing, whatever. Most bands really suck with their sort of second album.
Yep.
And even though I was a little disappointed when I initially heard it. So if you had asked me in 1993 if this would be on my list, it would not have been. But with all the years later, I think about what Pearl Jam did with 10, especially coming off of Mother Love Bone. And then they built this, and they diverged quite a bit. Spin the Black Circle and some other songs that annoyed me at the time. They're fucking amazing. I take it back. Spin the Black Circle is off of the other one. What I'm thinking of is Animal,
Vitalogy?
Go, Glorified G, and the best intro to a song that I can remember for a rock song in modern times, short of Aerosmith's
Sweet Emotion.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is Dissident.
Oh, yeah.
Dissident has just from the very first thing, that guitar riff, it's fucking amazing. And I don't know, this one, I had to grow into this one, but it is so good looking back 30 years that they came into this and did their second album and killed it with this. So I didn't want to put this on the list, honestly, because I remember sitting in my car and thinking, oh, man, why is this not 10? Why is this not the same thing?
Yeah.
And then you listen to, I think it's because Go started. I mentioned Spin the Black Circle. I mean Go. When the thing hot.
My bad. Sorry. Hot mic.
That's all right. But I think I mentioned Spin the Black Circle. I meant Go, because when Go started, I was disappointed. I was like, oh, really? You guys were so good.
Go sounds like it would be like an amazing song, right? Like,
Right.
I'm like, oh, it's Go, like fucking
Right.
Go.
And
yeah, you're right. That's one of, you know what's funny? That's one of my least favorite songs on that album.
It is. But that's
Yeah.
the thing is, that's my memory of that particular song is sitting in my car. I bought the Versus album and I'm like, Pearl Jam, come on. Put it in, and it starts with that. I'm like, oh.
Wish you didn't
really?
take it right back to the store like that Van Halen one.
Look, that one deserved to go back. I stand by that.
I love that story. I love that
I
story.
paid $26 for that and got $6 in return 6 hours later, or 3 hours later.
And Lee was happier
terrible.
than ever. He's like, I can't wait to hear. They're like, sir, what would you like to do with this? He's like, just get it out of my hands.
Just take it. Just, are you going to give me money? And they're like, we'll give you $6. I was like, great, done. And they're like, but it's right over there for $26. It's like, I know, I was here earlier today and I bought it. This is terrible. So anyway, but versus, I don't think I felt quite that visceral about, but I remember listening to it in my car and thinking, oh. And then now, 30 years later, I'm like, I was wrong. Totally wrong. I was totally wrong. These guys nailed it. It's a great second album.
It is. It's a very strong
way more
second
mature than they let 17-year-old me know.
I seem to recognize.
Yeah, honestly, everybody loves that song. I fucking hate that song. I don't hate it. It's good. It's a good song.
That song's good live.
Daughter, Glorified G, Dissident. I don't know. Anyway, so do I need to wrap this thing up for it to make sense, or
no?
Moving on, Josh.
All right, nice job, Muddy. Yeah, so yeah, good stuff there. Good stuff. All right, so my number four. You guys might not even have ever heard this album, but this is one of those albums that I did not know of. I did not know of this album back in the day, but it is crazy to hear it. Like, it seems like an album that did not come out in 1993. It seems like something that sounds way earlier, but it's a band called Jellyfish, and it came out in 1993, and it's called Spilt Milk. And this was not a commercially successful album, and it sounds kind of like the Beatles meet Pet Sounds, like Beach Boys and that kind of deal. Like, there's so many instruments layered in this thing. It's wild to hear. It's kind of like ear candy. You're like, whoa, what is going on in this album? It's wild. But you could tell there's a reason why it wasn't successful back when it came out, because no one was listening to this kind of like pop kind of rock kind of deal. Not that kind of pop rock. You know, it's funny. It was like I was reading about this album, different reviews of this album too, and they were like, "There's a lot of bands that were inspired by this album." And I'm like, people knew about this album? Like, when did they hear about this album? It's like interesting. Anyway,
that's super cool. Like, I have a deep cut for my number 2 album.
Okay,
wow.
Okay,
way to set us up for hang around for the.
I know, right? But like, I appreciate that, because most of us kind of live by what we hear on the radio.
Right. Yeah. That's why this would not be on my top 5 albums from 1993 if we were in 1993.
Right. Because you wouldn't have heard it.
No.
Right.
I wouldn't even have any idea about it.
Yeah. Neither would my number 2. Yeah. So I dig it. I like it. Yeah.
All right. So who are we up to? We're up to Ethan, right?
Yep.
Yes. The three.
What's your number 4?
It's 3,
number 3.
3.
Or what's your number 3? Sorry.
Keep drinking. I like it.
All right.
Wait, am I the only one that didn't graduate college? How can you guys not count?
I counted. I knew
you
3.
know
I had 3 fingers up.
That's true.
Lee.
Ethan got it.
Lee, some of the dumbest people I've ever met went to college and have degrees.
That's a good
If we're being honest, most of the dumb people went to college for our era and took loans for 7 years.
Not spoken by experience at all. My number 3 album, to most people, is going to be a deep cut. You guys have obviously heard of it because you've hung around me and I've talked about this band and I've seen them live, but is the Melvins with their album Houdini that came out. And obviously being pioneers of the early grunge era and a band that never got the credit that I feel they deserve. And yeah, I mean, I guess to some degree, though they are definitely kind of got that grungy rocky feel. I mean, they're definitely a little more heavy than a lot of stuff of that era. I mean, they got, especially this album. I mean, but my thing with the Melvins is they have, every album has songs that I really like, but it also has songs that I'm like, what in God's name is this? Like, this is just Strange Noises, and calling it like Magic Pig Detectives. The name of song, like on Stoner Witch, the album that came out like a year later, I think. Because I want to say that was like 94, maybe 95 that Stoner Witch came out. That was an awesome album. That had some huge hits like Revolve. But this one precedes that. And maybe there's not a song there that is like as hard hitting as Revolve, but it's the most complete album the Melvins had. And I saw them live when they were touring on this particular one. And it was just like, man, they put on a hell of a show with King Buzzo and his crazy ass hair. So like songs like Night Goat. I mean, come on, guys. If you haven't heard Night Goat, do yourself a favor. Kopachi. Okay. Honey Bucket. I mean, come on, man. That's like fantastic song. But even like some of the stuff that's even lesser stuff on here, like you got a song called Teat, Set Me Straight. Like there's just some other songs. I mean, it's just fun. It's fuzzy. It's got that kind of, you can hear those grunge elements, but really hard rocking. And like, to be honest, those guys just don't get the credit they deserve as musicians. They're pretty good at playing their instruments too, despite the rough sounds and kind of the punk metal feel. So,
talk about a group, by the way, that is one of the most true to, to themselves and the genre, and they are definitely in the top quarter of the hardest grunge groups by far. Like they are hard, right? But
dude, but they can be not hard too. They can do some really
I mean, they can be like, they're so quirky, but like they don't take themselves too seriously. But they
never pandered. They never said, "Oh, Seattle sound, let's do that." Sort of like Mudhoney. Mudhoney never bent. They just said, "We're us. If you're into us, great.
If you're not, don't care."
Yeah. King Buzzo leaned way into that. Those guys leaned way into it and said, "Hey, we're us."
Just in case, like, the Melvins Houdini, an album that not many people are probably gonna have on the radar, but like I think I was gonna make the comment that like, we got to thank King Buzzo too for the fact that Nirvana exists, because this is the guy that like mentored and brought Kurt. I mean, being both Aberdeen boys and stuff like that, like this is a big contributing force there too for what Nirvana. I mean, and I know they've got a pretty big album on the same year, so
yeah, there you go. Lee, or is it Lee or is it? Yeah, it's Lee, right?
Yeah.
That's his name. His name is Lee. Good job, Josh.
It is. I am. It's
confusing when he goes by Eel and Bruce and a bunch of other things too. So I understand your confusion.
It's a complex name.
I have aliases. It is a suffix.
Okay.
I get it.
I mean, let's just call him Lunchbox for the rest of the...
I am wearing the Lunchbox jersey that Ethan printed for me at
Can we see it? Can we see the Lunchbox jersey?
Yeah. I think. Hold on.
He's going to have a stroke.
We're middle-aged.
Jesus, he's getting old.
It is fucking rough. You guys will have to tell me if you can read it. I don't know.
Slow her down a little bit. I see the munch. Are you munching, Boxley? What is it? Perfect.
No, I'm in middle age.
Good. No, that works. So, good job.
Did he make this in 1983 or is this 1990?
No, this had to be
7.
That'd be 97, 98.
Okay.
Yeah, whenever Lindsay Stubrid and me and Ethan would sit in the fucking athletic supply and Ethan
Old North Central Avenue.
Lust over her, and then I would lust over her, and then she would go out with other dudes, and
that's all too a true story. I had a heart for that girl.
And then I ended up hiring her sister's husband to take my place with Mariners.
Oh wow, I don't know that.
Yeah,
his husband. Huh?
So, yeah, and then he got fired, and now he's not.
Oh, sounds like a winner.
Whatever.
Okay,
anyway.
All right. I go into weird places.
Another strange divergence. Which welcome to us.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. So Lee, what is your number 3?
This is another odd, strange divergence. I don't think you guys would have seen me picking this one. Sheryl Crow, Tuesday Night Music Club.
That was a huge album.
This is in the soft rock realm, barely in rock. And to this day, I think it's one of the best albums of that year. From beginning to end, Run Baby Run starts with a reference to Aldous Huxley, and the whole thing is super like vulnerable and open and honest. And knowing kind of the history that she was a nothing. She was nobody. Mm-hmm. And she just got together and recorded with these people. And she did these songs. and everybody listened to them and went, oh, fuck, these are really good songs.
Yeah.
And Run Baby Run, Leaving Las Vegas, Strong Enough, Can't Cry Anymore, like those are the first 4 songs on that album. You can start that album and forget about it.
Yeah, and the throwaway track was All I Want to Do.
Right, which was the pop hit.
Yeah.
But like that entire album, I used to listen to it when I went to sleep, is amazing.
Her musicianship is just
amazing,
incredible. Like that concert we went to, and Josh, did you go with that one? I know Danny and Visbal were there, or did you not accompany us?
I didn't go, and I wish I would have, because that's when that concert the year I think that you guys went 96, 97.
Yeah,
I was really into this second album. That's like when I really connected with her. But like, but yeah, I didn't go to that.
It was just so incredible watching her live, because she plays every instrument. You can tell she's well versed in music. Obviously, like was a background singer for a bunch of big stars, and but just like you said, the genuine nature of her lyrics and just the overall musicianship of her music was just stunning.
Like looking back all these years later, it's those songs are super fucking open, vulnerable, and awesome. And in that era where it was kind of grungy and whatever, she kind of broke through. She kind of broke through with her voice and sort of the things she was singing about that were just sort of genuine. It was
maybe
awesome.
Maybe that's the connection. I mean, obviously it's not grunge, but it has that same vein of honest, truthful music that isn't this fluffed up bullcrap of the 80s, this like polished turd.
Yes,
right? So I think there's that.
Here are the things she's talking about: fucking being pissed at her partner for not doing laundry. Like that sort of thing resonates with everybody. And then she had the great voice and sort of that. I don't know. That album is still one of the best albums, maybe of all time for me, but certainly of '93. I could listen to it from beginning to end right now. Be super happy.
That's a good pick. I like that pick. That's a good pick. I like it. You can't go wrong with Sheryl Crow, especially the first 3 albums or so.
So Josh, I'm just reminding you, this is your 3rd album. Go.
So number 3, my number 3 album has to be Pearl Jam Versus.
All right.
So Lee, we already kind of covered this. The album's packed with great songs. One of the greatest sophomore albums of all time.
I agree.
Trying to follow up an album like 10, pretty wild. You know what's funny is, I don't know if I think that the big hits on 10, they're almost kind of like so overplayed that I almost go back to this album more than I go back to 10, especially for the bigger songs. And it also has one of my favorite album tracks on this, with what's that?
I'll say for everyone listening, we have all had moments where tonight, for the things that were really important to us back then, we can't remember them. If you were younger, if you were young, if you are younger than middle age, this is your future. You can't remember the name of the song that was important to you. Just so you know.
Yeah. Well, it is an album track.
Get ready for that shit where you're like, this shit was really important to me, and I don't fucking remember the name. Anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, and it has one of my favorite album tracks, WMA, on it. And I love the drums and the bass on that song. They're so good.
Cool,
it's like so good. It's like hypnotic. It's awesome. So great. So I love that. I love the just song by song. It's like so. Good. It's a super strong album. So
sneak up on that one's Rats. I loved Rats. I don't know why that song. It's fun.
Well, and also I got to bring up the fact that sophomore albums are supposed to suck.
Well, they're supposed to suck.
I think it's sequels to movies.
Do suck.
Because you get discovered. Everyone has this idea who you are, and then Pearl Jam.
Well, I think
versus...
who was it? It might have been Slash that was talking about this in an interview. He's like, they're like, well, why? How was that first album so good? Appetite for Destruction. He's like, well, you have like 10 years to write your first album.
Right, exactly. And then you have
you make
9 months to record
and then the record company's okay. Well, all right. So
6 albums
album, so what's next? Come on, let's go.
Right, 6 albums in 2 years. Let's go.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, okay.
Right, but Pearl Jam lived up to it. I think it did. Versus I agree.
So we are on to our number 2. Right, Ethan?
Yes, too. The Deuce.
All right. All right. So, Ethan, number 2. What is your number 2?
What would be my number 2 album of 1993? Number 2.
Get this back to serious.
That's 4. So let's go to 2. Okay. My number 2 album of 1993 is like I said before. I realize I apparently have not grown much since I was in 1993 because I'm pretty sure most of these albums would be what I picked. Other than I probably would have picked Aerosmith, to be quite honest. And this album I know is not going to be everybody's cut either, but I was a metal guy, and I have so many just amazing memories. Yeah, and I am still not quite as I'm far more diverse now and like a lot of stuff. But yeah, I still go back to this.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah. So stoner rock and a bunch of other alternative rock that my wife will like listening to with me as well. But like a lot of Tame Impala, man. Tame Impala's pretty legit. That's my son's favorite. Now back to the point that the album is Chaos AD by Sepultura in 1993.
Whoa.
And it's heavy and Brazilian metal. It's a fantastic album.
Fuck yeah.
And there's so many memories. And even though those memories are maybe more 94, because as I was kind of saying, in 1994, I got to go see these guys live on my birthday, turning 18, and coming back with all the boys from the Oz and just moshing. And this album, they had an amazing album called Arise earlier in the 90s, but this one, they just came into their own. Igor Cavalera on drums, Max Cavalera's brother on lead vocal.
Max Cavalera. Oh.
Yeah, there's some of the stuff that the guitars, just the way they tuned it. I have a feeling so much of nu metal kind of came out of this sound anyway, because they just really dropped down the tuning and just did some heavy stuff. And
that's straight voice. Korn picked up that.
No question. And I mean,
that's where the 7-string guitar came from. Yes.
And I know Ross Robinson, which is one of those famous producers of this metal era, and everything he touched seemed to turn to gold in this kind of genre. He may have done this album. I don't recall. I know he did Chaos AD, the one that came after, but it's just the song, or excuse me, but Roots after this one. Chaos AD is the one I'm talking about. I'm not allowed to drink anymore before these things. This song has got Territory that comes right off the bat, Chaos AD, the song, Propaganda. I mean, there's so many amazing songs off of this album that song for song, amazing. I used to play the CD sometimes, and Brent wouldn't let me do it anymore because my boy Kipster, when he was living with me, I would press play and forget about the thing in the CD changer. And there's this weird track after the music's over where they clearly recorded this insane laughter for another song, but they just put it on as a bonus track. So it's quiet for 3 minutes. And then also it's dude, at the top of your lungs in the middle of the night. Brent goes, I shit my pants. I thought someone was coming to murder me.
Jesus, when they started doing that, these secret tracks,
Tool did that.
Yeah. Especially at Ethan's place, it would scare the shit out of you because
because we'd be sleeping in the fucking garage.
Yeah, how loud did Ethan have his music in that garage? It was the loudest shit I've ever heard.
I had a roommate that was loud as hell, and I could not sleep about that. Time I had to crank the music just to drown out all the stupid shit Brent did.
Look,
God bless him. I love him.
Can we call a quick timeout and say, even though looking as an adult back at your garage kingdom there looks a little less than ideal, at 17 or 18,
pretty damn ideal.
God fucking damn, dude, we all wanted that.
Yeah,
I had a room with my mom and my sister. I couldn't listen to shit. You had Playboy shit on the fucking walls and the ceiling. You had metal playing. It was fucking awesome.
TV, video games.
God, the biggest Iron Maiden poster I've ever seen in my entire life.
Giant one. Got at the swap meet, bunch of tapestries, Metallica and Maiden, and the Shrine to Adolescenthood. I think Josh is the one that coined that name for the room at one point. It was it was a bummer when I had to go to college and take all that stuff down. I still have 5 of those posters in my classroom. Not the lady ones, because I couldn't do that, but I've got Bo Jackson, the black and blue with the Raiders and the Royal stuff, and I've got I've got Hulk versus Wolverine and the Iron Maiden, the Troopers on my wall at school, and that's pretty
awesome.
Sweet. Yeah, stick close to my roots, baby.
God damn, your fucking garage room was rad.
It was rad.
I was stuck with my mom and my sister. Hey, great ladies, but
yeah, it was nice, especially for 2 adolescent boys out there. Listening to our music, playing our video games, we kind of could just be off in the rest of the house, and at the same time, because it was an insulated garage, wall between ours and the rest of the house, we never got any complaints. So
yeah, it was
good times.
But also Sepultura. That's the thing is I came. So you guys know I came from a really mellow background, and then I went to Auburn. So the difference between where I grew up and then I went to Auburn for high school.
I met a bunch of psychos that listen to all sorts of things.
Kind of Michael Bolton to fucking metal.
Yeah.
Lee's rocking the Garth Brooks and.
No, I was just like
Michael Bolton. That's even that's crazier. Garth Brooks is like heavy metal compared to.
That's what I'm saying.
Michael
Is
Bolton.
like that's what I'm saying is like Sumner was kind of mellow, kind of whatever, and then I chose to go to Auburn. Totally. Yes. Look, that's why we are still friends.
Yeah.
And that's why I left that group. But like, I remember when Woody introduced me to Sepultura, because me and Woody and me and Rory Foster were lifting partners in high school. And Rory was super mellow, but Woody was all about Sepultura and like all those. And I was like, Sepultura, this is fucked up. This is fucked up shit.
It sounds crazy, man, right?
It's super crazy, right?
With all the weird, cool Brazilian drums they put into it, and like it's just different.
Dude, that was my entree into metal. And I was like, this is fucking nuts. Like, my mom took me to Michael Bolton and Kenny G at the Puyallup Fair. Like,
that explains a lot.
Oh, dude, I promise at some point when my mom passes away in some of her shit, I have a poster autographed by Michael Bolton and Kenny G.
What?
Because she won tickets to the concert at the Puyallup Fair. I got a meet and greet with both Kenny G and Michael Bolton. I got a fucking autograph.
It's telling me you put your lips all over Kenny G's.
What?
Never mind.
Wow.
The read to his. Yeah,
this is amazing.
Yeah,
we need to get more drinks in this guy.
That exists. That exists. So anyway, so you guys know, up until 10th grade. So that was probably 9th grade. That was probably like Lake Ridge Junior High.
Right on the cusp.
Michael Bolton, Kenny G, and all the goodness. You know, I mean, not goodness band. Like, just I was very just, you know, whatever.
Well, imagine
and then I came to fucking Auburn, and Auburn's a different fucking place.
Well, it is. We have to look at the collection of our friends. You know, I had Brent that listened to Gangster Rap. I had the Schmieders. I had Jeremy that got me into metal way back in the day, Jeremy Noyce and Woody and all those guys. But like all these different things, that Josh and all of the classic rock and all the stuff. I mean, we're so blessed to just have all this diverse group of weirdos. Like, plus Big Jabita, man. I mean, John. Yeah. I don't know what John introduced me to. I'm like, John, what the hell is this?
Flaming Lips and
just somebody's like, what is this? Like, someone just like, I'm so blessed with all that. But I remember going, I can't remember all the buddies that went to me at Sepultura, but imagine you come home on your birthday and your girlfriend made you a cake, and you're just, Brent and I are so hungry, we're literally just digging in with our hands, still covered in sweat from the pits, like, because that club was so freaking small, it was so packed.
Yeah.
They had like gas masks on. I come back from the show on my birthday, and given that's in 94, but the album was 93, and like Brent and I are so freaking starved, we're so covered in sweat from the mosh pits. We had this fast flying ride back from the Oz, and there's this cake that Celeste made me and my girlfriend in high school, and Brent and I just digging with both of our hands and just shoving it down. Like, it was just like the most awesome night when you're with your buddies, you're at the show, we're slamming the hell out of people. I mean, it's just so there's so much positive nostalgia tied to that album too. On top of it's a really complete, pretty amazing metal album. I mean, I might say Roots is the pinnacle for me of Sepultura, which was such a great album, but it's still just a fantastic album, and I think it was a really big, just kind of broadened my horizons of what metal could be with all the crazy Brazilian drums, everything they put into it. So for me, number 2 is Chaos AD by Sepultura.
So Sepultura is your number 2.
Well, Eats Sepultura, I got to go back to that and say that kind of era, Sepultura did introduce me to metal, which turned out to be a pretty fucking big thing for me. I was never aggressive. I was never into that. That realm for me, Sepultura, Pantera, like that fucking thing where you get involved in that thing where it's like people have told you, and I grew up with my mom and my sister that told me all these aggressive men, they're horse shit. Don't ever be that. And then you fucking hear Phil Anselmo or Max Cavalera or like, and then you're like,
wait, so are you crediting Sepultura with getting you laid?
No, I'm crediting alcohol for getting me laid.
Oh, okay.
Let's be clear. But alcohol for the girls, let's be clear, because
they're giving you confidence.
What I'm saying is there is a part of masculinity that comes from aggression. And if you don't grow up with that, Ethan grew up with, I think, a different kind of fucking fucked up, right? I grew up with a fucked up that was...
Well, don't discount testosterone too, which is probably hitting the same kind of time frame.
But so imagine you grew up in a realm where testosterone was punished.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you run into
new friends at your new school.
Sepultura and Pantera, and you get in a fucking fist fight once in a while, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know, being a dude's kind of cool.
Yeah. So you add in Sepultura, Pantera, alcohol, and it leads to punching poor Ryan in the chest so hard that he rolls under a car.
That's true.
He doesn't leave and doesn't want to come out.
Knowing Dunham, he probably had it coming.
And look, if we're being honest,
I hit Dunham so hard that James dies, please.
I fucking told him, Ryan, I'm about to punch you in the fucking gut really fucking hard.
God, that's terrible.
That's like every time I almost broke Mo's arm. Like, Mo, if you touch me one more time, I'm going to break your arm. Touch me one more time, I'm going to break it. Touch you, I go, okay, I warned you, and then
jeez.
I looked Ryan in the eye, and I said, I'm going to punch you in the fucking stomach as hard as I can.
Ryan still swears to this day that you punched him so hard he felt that in his spine.
I bottomed out. I fucking bottomed out, and he laid under that car until the fucking
He was in a fetal position
until the fucking owner came out, and we had to stop the owner from backing out over him.
Like, sir, you can't move. My buddy's like underneath the car over here.
I will to this day, it's on Ryan. I fucking told him.
It's on Ryan.
I told him.
What was he supposed to do? Run away or say no?
Look, there was one of those building things. It was built. Ryan's a shit talker, and he's bum.
Ryan probably had it coming.
We were standing in the fucking parking lot, and I said, Ryan, I'm gonna punch you in the stomach as hard as I can. And he goes, okay. And I fucking rocked him, and I swear to God,
I have to stay in the pod. All of us has to stay in. This is
he says I hit his spine. I fucking corroborate that. I felt fucking bone, and I fucking hit him as hard as I could.
That's like a five-finger death punch.
He laid down under the car. Anyway,
all right.
So thank you, Sepultura.
All right. So what's your number two, Lee?
All right, so my number two is something that nobody ever brought up. I think it flirted. Josh brought this up later, but this was my surprise one that nobody knows. Splendor Solace by the Tea Party. The Tea Party,
Canada.
Dude,
that is such crying shame too. These
guys fit into that realm that like just barely missed the fucking Seattle thing or the grunge of whatever it was, and if they had hit the right time, they'd have been number one. These guys were musically, we saw them at the Moore, and they played every guy played every instrument, and they're all like weird fucking Zeppelin-y, like the lead singer sounds like Jim Morrison. The rest of the band sounds like Led Zeppelin, but Led Zeppelin in their weird fucking like Renaissance fair, weird fucking musicality. Shit.
And they do have a '90s sound.
They do,
but it's like massive influence of those two groups.
It's you know, I was listening to this last week when we were talking about this, and I said, you know, because you brought up a bunch of shit, you sent a bunch of stuff. And Tea Party was nowhere on it.
Right.
Which it shouldn't have been. Nobody knew. And when Jewel and I were driving to Tacoma, we had a dentist appointment. I said, you got to listen to this. She listened to the entire album, and she said, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
The entire fucking album.
Yeah.
And it is as if Jim Morrison was singing for Led Zeppelin in 1993.
Yeah, totally. That's a great, there you go, right there. You know what's funny is I completely forgot about it, but I remember you used to just always throw your CDs on the ground, and I'd be always kicking them aside as I was trying to get into your truck. But that was always kicking around in there.
Tea Party.
Tea Party was always kicking around in there, and I didn't even think about it until Kathy Faulkner was on that podcast with Bob Rivers, Spike.
Right?
And she mentioned it, and she goes,
"Oh, she did."
Because she mentioned it because they were so huge in Canada, but they were not big here. but only in Seattle. They're a regional big band in Seattle.
Because KSW did such a good job of finding these bands that were legit and putting them on the air, even if they weren't the mainstream popular thing. It's what made KSW so legit.
They did. Yep. So their second album, something about Twilight. I don't fucking remember. Spike gave me that fucking album because at the Mariners, Spike would come down all the time. I was driving Spike somewhere. He's like, "Hey, have you heard these guys?" And I was like, "Yeah, I fucking love Tea Party." He goes, "You want to come to the Rising Stars show?" And that's when I saw them at the Moore. Spike from KSW, now of whatever, but he was on that podcast, gave me that CD. Edges of Twilight was their second album. And so I was cool. Like, I fucking love these guys. And he gave me tickets to that, and they lived up to every fucking bit of my prior knowledge of them. They're amazing. Fucking amazing.
They're a great band.
Best musicians, great lyrics, great singing. They are fucking amazing. And if not for my predilection, if not, I mean, drunk or not,
no,
I'm just saying, if not for my obvious number one, my predilection for my obvious number one, these guys are better. These guys are better in almost every realm. They all played every instrument on stage. It was a crazy, like, world music, like we talked about, the Doors meets Zeppelin meets grunge. Yeah. Like, it was unbelievable, and they were so amazing live. So I don't know.
They have to be up there with groups that are criminally underrated that never got their due.
Yeah.
Because there's a list of groups like that, kind of like Goodness and Tea Party and Second Coming, and like these groups that, like, you're like, wait a minute, they should be way bigger than they are because they are amazing. But that's just the way it happens sometimes. Right?
I would put Tea Party at the top of that list. I mean, musically they were insane. Yeah, they're so good. So anyway, but Tea Party, Splendor Solace. Yeah, listen to it.
Awesome.
Go find it.
Awesome. So I'm doing my number 2, right?
Yeah, it's your number 2.
Number 2 walk for?
Don't take a number 2 on Lee, please. He's into that, but don't do
it. My number 2 album has got to be Get a Grip. Get a Grip by Aerosmith. And we already covered this, but I think Aerosmith, they're still right in the middle of that crazy comeback, and this was probably their last great album, in my opinion. Like, they had 9 Lives that came after this, which was all right. It was an okay album, but this one's the last great Aerosmith album, in my opinion. Even the album tracks, amazing. They kind of got some. They had some outside writers for this, which they didn't really do that in the early days, but. Their names are still on the songs, man. So these are some solid songs. And Lee, what do you?
Totally, I totally agree. I mean, I think we brought this up earlier, but also it didn't hurt to have Alicia Silverstone in all the videos. I mean,
and Liv Tyler,
and Liv Tyler, yeah. I mean, that's but that was Aerosmith was a '70s band that managed to hang on and make really good music all the way into the '90s, and that's saying something. So it would be like if Pearl Jam, released a really great album today.
Oh, totally. Yeah. So the album is just, there's tons of songs on it. They're solid, great songs. And of course I'm going to pick kind of like this is kind of like right in the middle of mainstream rock. So it's just fits the bill. It doesn't really even go with this year because it's such a mainstream rock album, right in the middle of, kind of like these grunge albums and stuff like that. But
I mean, I just tell you. Well, I mean,
still great music.
The fact that it's that good and it got that much airplay and was that impressive during a time when a lot of other mainstream rock was dying. The fact that it was so successful despite all that, it just shows you how good those songs were, how good the visuals and the videos were.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, and that definitely helped. And they're all over the place too. In '93, they were on soundtracks. And they're still cool. They were still cool. 20 years after they came out, I
mean, I suppose we should mention that they weren't done yet. They did not hit their peak until the theme song for Armageddon.
Oh, yeah.
The greatest movie of all time.
Because you just love Ben Affleck so much.
Lee and I walked out of that movie. We never saw it. I still never seen the end of that movie, Lee.
Yeah, me neither. I don't know.
Are we ever going to see the end of the movie? Because we know what happens. Like when he finally got on that.
It's
that
about
thing
as formulaic as it comes. Yeah.
He gets on that like 3-wheeler or whatever, or that 4-wheeler, and he jumps. And I was like, I look over at Lee and I go, okay, we need to get out of here.
Well, and by that point, I was already like, wait, they're taking guns to an asteroid. Do they have some sort of intelligence that there's some force they're gonna have to fight there? And then they crash landed and everything caught on fire without atmosphere, and I was like. And then it was, we got to find him.
This has to be Jerry Bruckheimer.
Texas. This is.
Or what was the one guy? Who's the guy that makes the Transformers movies that make no sense?
I mean, Michael Bay, Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yes, Michael Bay. Yeah. Jesus, yeah. Michael Bay stuff is sometimes so devoid of thought.
Yes.
We didn't even listen to Aerosmith because they said, I don't want to miss a thing. And that's all we could think about was missing.
I want to miss that movie. I want to miss that movie. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. So get a grip. So the songs were great. They pulled it off amazingly. Amazing.
Yeah.
And
well played.
I think it's crazy how consistent the record is. And all the haters, they just need to line up and get a grip. All right, that's all I got. All right. Sorry.
All right, well done, buddy.
Okay.
Very fun. Nice play on words.
Thank you. Thank you. At least somebody appreciates it.
I do.
Lee.
I do. Lee does not.
All right.
Yeah. I do.
All right.
All right.
So
here we are,
getting our number one. Number one. Drum roll. Okay, but remember, first we like to start with our honorable mentions. And so, like I said, honorable mentions for me, first off, like when I didn't realize that this was just going to be rock and roll at first, I was obviously, and I just have to mention some of the great hip hop albums that came out in '93. For example, my love of Cypress Hill and Black Sunday was such a fantastic album. So many things. They even had a great song, as we mentioned before, on that the Last Action Hero soundtrack. I was trying to blank there for a second. Okay. But needless to say, the Judgment Night soundtrack too was really good as an honorable mention. I didn't have Versus in my top 5. And that's like one of those things where, man, if I really think about what I listen to more today, grunge is probably what I listen to more than some of the heavy metal that I've picked. But Versus, this isn't an album. Like, there's songs, but I haven't delved into it because I'm such a late adopter to Pearl Jam. It just doesn't hit me the same way, as much as I respect that album and that band. So that's an honorable mention. So is In Utero, because once again, I was a late adopter to Nirvana because I was such a metal or nothing guy in high school, as you guys will remember. And I mean, I like In Utero, but to me, it's not my favorite of their albums. Even though I respect that they evolved and changed their sound through all the albums as they continue to write songs together and improve. But I know another one I would probably mention because I'm such a huge fan now, but I'll leave that one for Lee.
It'll get covered.
Yeah. So those are my honorable mentions. My number one album of 1993, without a doubt for me, has got to be Tool, Undertow. And I mean, I hate, because I know that I'm going to probably have at least one of you that's going to agree with me. I can't imagine who that would be. But needless to say, that band, I still remember sitting at Woody's house. I want to say we were seriously waiting to watch Beavis and Bud. It was coming on. We were all hanging out at his house in high school. And I can't remember if it was 120 Minutes or Headbangers Ball that was on just prior to it. And because, I mean, honestly, Tool could fit into either of those genres strangely. Like, that's the thing about Tool. It doesn't really, it's kind of a genre,
they made their own genre.
Right. So it's kind of metal, but it isn't. But that was the thing that blew me away is I'm watching this video for Sober, the first released kind of single off that album, and just the pain in the music, the fact that you have only 3 real instruments and then Maynard's voice, but the sonic, like, just a wall of sound that comes from that band, and like arguably the greatest drummer in my mind ever.
100%.
He's just
Danny Carey is the best rock drummer of all time.
I mean, just between him and you got Adam Jones and his artwork in that video, along with the second single that comes off of that, Prison Sex, where you're just like, first off, what the hell is this band singing about? Secondarily, the visuals that just match this crazy new sound, Maynard's voice, the things he did, just absolutely incredible stuff. And so that album really changed my beliefs of what music could be, in particular the type of music. I think it's part of the reason why I started to go and cross over and listen to a lot more alternative rock and things like that, just to see like the capabilities, and just kind of diversified me in a way. And so I really respect Tool for that, and just everything they put out afterwards. I even went back and looked up Opiate and some of the stuff they put out beforehand. It was just like they never let me down, man. They're incredible, they're prolific, and there's just not many bands that make albums like them.
Lee, I think
I'm going to tag onto this. I'll actually hit my honorable mention after, because it's just logical to talk about, Tool. Like that album Undertow came out, and I think it caught a spot where we were in between like pure angst of like grunge and whatever. And if that didn't necessarily catch you, you were sort of butt rock and sort of metal and whatever. And all of those things, whether it was sort of the butt rock, the metal, or the grunge or whatever, the one thing they had was they were making songs that were sort of palatable, if that makes sense. And Tool came along and they weren't in a hurry at all. I mean, we know this because they take like 6 years per album to put something out.
Yes, they do.
But the way Ethan described it, that wall of sound and that sort of super heavy, was it metal? It wasn't quite stoner rock. It wasn't quite like math rock. It made its own thing, and it was like, holy shit, this thing
a hard symphony.
Yeah, and it's like, this makes me angry, but also sad and happy, and what the fuck? And you could just that guttural thing, and they were just in no hurry to give a shit about what you thought. They just made their shit and they did it, and it was awesome, and it is still awesome. They're amazing. So I completely agree with Ethan. The number one album in '93 has got to be Undertow. I actually saw those guys. It's Rockstock '94. I mean, I've seen Tool many times, but I saw them at Rockstock '94, which was at the Kitsap County Fairgrounds, and I think it was like those guys and Failure and I feel like Screaming Cheetah Wheelies and some other really crappy bands. Candlebox played that show. And it was, so anyways, a big festival show on Saturday, which was amazing, and Tool headlined that. And then the next day at the same place was Soundgarden, Tad, and 11.
Wow.
And that's just the best rock weekend of my life. Like I went to the total burnout day show that ended with Tool at night. And, that was right. I mean, also, 94, I was in the mosh pit. Like I was way down there just getting all sweaty, all, pushed around. So I did that all the first day and then drove home. And then
this is when Lee had those crazy thick legs where he had to wear the sweatpants.
Well, we already talked about it. Ethan and I rarely got pushed around in the mosh pits.
True.
Ethan was bigger than me, but I never really had.
But you were kind of like a brick, like
the Lunchbox. The human Lunchbox.
I mean, hey, Lunchbox. Yeah. So, but it still took a ton of energy. So I just smoked myself that first day, and it was amazing. And then Soundgarden.
Could you still do that today? Thank you. I'll be here all night.
Yeah, that's hilarious. So anyway, I don't know. I mean, Ethan touched on so much of it. It's fucking awesome. Danny Carey is the best drummer. Maynard James Keenan is one of the best lyricists, one of the best singers. Adam Jones is an amazing guitar player and visual artist. Justin Chancellor was amazing. Like they just hit it. They just nailed it. They just hit a thing that nobody was doing before or really since. Right. And they owned it, and they're Tool.
By the way, have you ever seen a band make a video that looks and sounds and like the group itself? You're like, right. Oh, this is so creepy and like weird, and you're like that
and their art, like it's all Adam Jones artwork, like it is them.
Remember even seeing them live, Josh, when we saw them, I mean, obviously later in the A&M tour, but like the fact that, I didn't even know what the band looked like. You don't see them on their album covers. Right. You don't see them in their videos.
They're a mystery. Yeah.
We go and see them live. Maynard's dressed like a Southern preacher, like with all these fake prosthetics. And by the end of the show, he stripped it off and giant fake boobs, and he's dancing around like some like briefs. Like, what is going on? Like one time too, was that the same show where Justin Chancellor, like, his body was like black and he had his fingers like painted so they catch up like on a black light, so you couldn't really see him but his bass, but you could see his fingers just moving up and down it was just like, it's like performance art when they even like everything about it was just like, it's so crazy.
And they never wanted anybody to know really who they were.
It's about the music. Music first and forward. Yeah,
exactly.
I was having this conversation the other day, I think it was with Eric. There's only two bands that really blew me away when I saw them live, because, you don't really know sometimes. I mean, listen, anybody could be amazing on a record, right? There's like so many studio tricks. And now it's bands like when you go see, like, I've seen performances by like Smash Mouth and you're like, holy shit, they are awful. Wow, they are bad. But there's only two bands that I've seen live that blew me away. And one of them, the first one I saw, was Emerson, Lake and Palmer. When they opened up for Jethro Tull, I was like, all right, let's go see Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Jethro Tull. It's at the Gorge. It's going to be cool because it's at the Gorge, right? And I was like, holy moly. I did not realize how amazing they were. Much like them, Tool. They were so precise, so powerful. I was like, wow, I don't think you could really understand unless you see them live how great they are.
Just like the albums, it's almost like you're meant to see it live, right? Like it's just everything goes up a notch.
I've never seen like their music is so technical and precise and powerful that you don't expect them to be that good live.
Right.
And they are.
And then they are. Yeah. It is worth honorably mentioning. There are a couple. Ethan mentioned, there was a lot going on. We chose rock for this thing. 93 was arguably a better year for hip hop. He mentioned a couple things that weren't mentioned, but I'm going to throw in Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. Was amazing. That came out in 93. But also, there's a band that, Ethan loves, I love, still hidden, still underrated.
Hugely underappreciated, yeah.
And admittedly, 1993 was their transnational, whatever the fuck, long album name. And it wasn't the best album. Like, it wasn't really super great, but it was the one that got me into listening to them. A song called Shogun Named Marcus. I was like, who the fuck are these guys? What's going on with this? And I started listening to them. Then in 94, they released their eponymous disc. And that thing has I don't think it's ever left my CD. Every car that I've ever had has that in the CD player right now. I currently have a car that still has a CD player. It's in it now.
I can vouch for this, by the way, because I used to kick around those CDs when I used to get into your truck, and I would always pick up that CD.
Clutch is, I really only have one sticker that I put on a car, and it's Clutch.
It used to be Tool.
It used to be Tool, yeah.
So they replaced Tool.
They kind of did, yeah, because honestly, I listen to more Clutch now. I don't listen to Tool very often now. I don't think I'm angry enough. But Clutch,
you've definitely gotten a little lighter in your older years.
I hope that's the direction we all go, right?
You don't want to be Carlin, just get angrier and angrier.
Look, if you start at Tool and Rage Against the Machine and get angrier in the next 30 years, I don't know where you end up.
I don't know what is the ceiling there.
Right, but anyway, I'll throw that in there. Everybody needs to go listen to Clutch, and 8 out of 10 people are going to go, "What the fuck?" And 1 out of 10 person is going to go, "All right, I can kind of dig this." And 1 person is going to go, "Whoa, this is shit's cool." And it's different for every album.
Yeah. If you know music and you know musicianship, and if you watch what they put into it, and the fact that these guys are such nerds, like they collect drums and then have drums specifically for that album just so they get the sound. Like there's just things there that are like for music nerds and people that like production and stuff like that. Like if you really listen, I know that Neil Fallon's voice isn't for everybody because it's a little more like, he sounds like he should be singing behind chicken wire at like a roadhouse. But I love that. And the guy's like a graduate of University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Like this guy knows literature. He works in all these kind of cool references in his lyrics. They're just underappreciated, but I kind of like that they are, because then they keep coming around and tour, and you can see them for not very expensive and great venues. So small venues.
Yep. So that was an honorable mention. I'm glad that Ethan and I both appreciate that one. And Josh, I'm glad that you have some traumatic memories driving around in my truck listening to Tool, or to Clutch.
Well, they weren't traumatic memories. I know. They were just kind of like, what is this?
Yes.
But I did that with everybody because it was like, remember we talked about this before. Wasn't that kind of like the unwritten rule is, hey, you're riding in my car, you're listening to, so
music.
I'm cool with it because how many times did we learn about other genres and stuff like that?
Yeah. Or get pulled over for having Frosties. Never mind.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Anyway. So my runners-up,
honorable mentions.
My honorable mentions. There you go. So I did have Tool as my first runner-up. I had Lenny Kravitz, Are You Gonna Go My Way? And then I had Sheryl Crow, as Lee spoke about earlier, Tuesday Night Music Club. I didn't get too much into Sheryl Crow until the next album, but I did like some songs off that album. It was really good. But I'd also like to bring up this album.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
Which is worth bringing up.
Yes, it is.
Not a rock album, but sort of a rock album.
Whoa. There's some rock songs on there. There's some classic rock songs on there.
I'm moving it out.
Little Adam Sandler.
Now pull up my scrotum and take the shampoo batter out of my ass. What a relief. Pretend I'm the pizza delivering guy and watch me
Lots of skits, lots of comedy skits, but and some really stupid ones, by the way.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Oh yeah.
What was the and now the beating of a high school Spanish teacher or whatever?
Yeah, right. Some strange things, but that was rated R humor in 1993.
Yeah. So now my number one album for 1993 has got to be In Utero by Nirvana.
Respect.
And this album, I know that I'm with the rock dudes here, and this is a rock album. It's like one of the biggest grunge albums of the era. But this album really did help define the era in general. It's one of those albums where it sounds like you really feel like you're inside Kurt Cobain's head in this album. It sounds like you're in Seattle listening to this album, even though I'm in sunny Phoenix, Arizona now. But instead of making Nevermind Part 2, they completely, I don't know if they really reinvented themselves, but it's definitely different sounding. And they got the different producer for this album, and it's not as clean and slick as Nevermind was. And I definitely remember hearing this album with Pete Capone in our culinary arts class in high school. I don't even know why we were listening to that. Maybe because you could play music while you're cooking stuff. I can't remember, but someone put in that album and we were listening to it. And so it always kind of reminds me of that. So it's definitely a high school album for me. And I think that, one other thing that I was going to bring up is when we were talking about classic albums from the past, this album, it has, all the classic songs like, Heart-Shaped Box, Pennyroyal Tea, Rape Me, Dumb, but it also ends with All Apologies. And that song, it's a perfect ending for the band, I think.
It is, yeah.
We were talking about this before, how you have like these albums where they just kill it like in the first like 4 or 5 songs and then it just kind of gets worse and worse, and you're like, okay, I don't ever really listen to
a lot of filler
more of the album,
right?
But that's not the case with this. That's like Led Zeppelin 4. You know how it ends with When the Levee Breaks?
Yeah,
and it's like a perfect ending. You're like, damn, that was awesome, man. Like I think All Apologies is kind of like it's like a thought out. Perfect.
It is. It's a note it's an open letter to the world saying, what else can I be? What else you want?
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Yeah.
So Nevermind. I liked the first, I loved, obviously, Smells Like Teen Spirit is like, it's hard to deny how great of a song that is. But I didn't really super get into that album. But when this album came out, everyone was anticipating. They're like, how are you going to follow up that album? How are you going to do it? And I think they did it.
Yep.
And that is hard to do. It's one of the hardest things to do for any band. I think that album is the album that defines this year, because then the next year he died the next year, right? Like
94,
pretty soon
94.
after this.
Yeah.
So they recorded that live album, which some of the best songs from this album were performed live on that album, and they were like the best versions of these songs.
MTV Unplugged,
crazy. So, and again, that's like going back to, you might be a good band, but can you perform them live? And it's weird because it's got to be the biggest Unplugged, right, ever? Because
it's got to
be. Because you watch that, first off, you watch that and you're like, okay, what are we expecting from this? Because they're a crazy, like,
how do you unplug
hard rocking band? And then you're like, the entire thing is just like, what else? He's like in a sweater, and you're like, oh, okay. But
it's a good choice. It obviously didn't make Ethan and I's choices, but it deserves to be there just like anything else. That's what's awesome about music.
Yeah. So, all right. So I do have a little thing here. This is in honor of Jerry Springer, who recently passed away. I have some final thoughts for the year of rock in 1993. 1993, as great a year as it was, it's probably my least favorite year of the 90s. Every year has great music. Every year. But I think some of the other genres, like Lee said, may have been a little bit better. Probably stronger. And when I go back, when I listen to these songs from this year, I'm usually not going back for the rock. I'm going back for some of the other genres that was released. Maybe a little Ace of Base action, maybe some Adam Sandler comedy albums, something like that. But I think just even on the other side, 92, 94, both stronger years in my opinion. And I think it's weird because you think of 1993 and you're like, well, that's the 90s. That's right in the middle of the 90s. That's got to be like one of the greatest years. But if you go through like, the hundreds of songs that I put on this playlist, you're like, all right, yeah. I mean, there's great stuff on there, but it's not my favorite of all the years. So,
agreed.
How did Typo Negative not make any of our lists?
There's a good reason why I didn't.
I'm just saying.
But maybe next year we can celebrate our grad year.
I like that.
1994.
Some great music in 94.
Yeah.
But until then, take care of yourself and each other.
Rest in peace, Jay.